Hi, everyone. This is Olga Redding with Iowa Organic Association. Um, Hi, welcome. You are part of our Regenerative Organic Certification webinar with Elizabeth Whitlow. So a couple housekeeping things. If you could please mute yourself throughout the presentation, that would be greatly appreciated. If there are questions that pop into your head that you would like to ask, feel free to go ahead and type them into the chat box. And at the end of the presentation, we'll have about 10-15 minutes where I'll go through the chat box and ask those questions of Elizabeth. We also have Drew Erickson with Midwest Organic Center here with Rodale Institute on this call too, and he might jump in and kind of share some things with us here today as well. Without further ado, though, I will go ahead and share a few slides about IOA for those of you who don't know what we do, just so that you have a brief understanding what we do. So let me go ahead and share this presentation. All right, so we are a nonprofit organization and we were established in 2006. We are committed to organic education, advocacy, and community cooperation, and basically building a community where organic farmers can be part of. Our mission is to advance organic agriculture and food systems in the state of Iowa, and our members represent a diverse community of Iowa's organic farmers, gardeners, food and farm businesses, and advocates, and of course, consumers who champion the organic movement. And you guys are part of this community, so thank you to each and every one of you. As far as our priorities, we have four overarching priorities, education being one of them. This webinar is part of that education priority. Of course, we look at providing programs and sharing expertise and any information that might be helpful to diversify organic opportunities in our state. We have done growing organic expertise workshops with technical service providers to include an RCS for the last few years. And we've also been part of a grant that we've received for the last 2 years with REAP-CEP, which is a Resource Enhancement Conservation Education Program. And through this grant, we have been able to present to 17 colleges across the state of Iowa on organic agriculture. So during these visits, I present a brief overview on National Organic Program and things of that nature. And along myself, I always bring an organic farmer in the area that can share their firsthand experience. And we have received outstanding results. These students, 90% of them have gained new knowledge from our visits, and then 74% had absolutely zero to very little knowledge about the topics that we covered. So we know that this is very important information to share with these young students that will be part of the agriculture's future. And of course, we do farm field days, webinars, and have a plethora of online resources on our website. As far as outreach, we connect with various target audiences to promote our information at different conferences such as Marble Seed, All Grain, PFI. We also have an active listserv, and definitely sign up for our e-news if you haven't already done so. And then we constantly keep our event calendar page updated with various events that may be of interest to you guys. And then as far as advocacy, we're always looking at partnering with various policy leaders in the state of Iowa to mobilize these very important topics. In addition, we have been selected for the top funding partnership. This is a brand new partnership. There's $300 million that will be put into this partnership, and they have picked various organizations across the country, and we are one of them. So we're very excited about that. And then, of course, building a community is a huge part of what we're doing. And we encourage a culture of collaboration by connecting with organic experts, stakeholders, and strengthen our Iowa organic community. And as far as resources, if you guys are not familiar with our organic resource directory, I would highly encourage you to check it out on our website. It is available in PDF form that you can download directly to your laptop. It includes over 900 businesses, nonprofits, and service providers that basically can be a resource to you as an organic farmer or an organic business. And then today's webinar and the winter webinars this winter are actually, in partnership with the USDA RMA grant that we've received. Just wanted to highlight some programs that are available through RMA, which also stands for Risk Management Agency. So for those that have the ability to actually join us on Tuesday, January 24th, we have a roadshow event. It's actually a workshop, in-person workshop that day. The first part of the morning will be for agents, and then the second part will be for producers. So definitely check that out and join us that day if you're in the area. But some of the programs that are available through RMA are the Whole Farm Revenue Protection Program, which provides a risk management safety net for farms that have up to $17 million in insured revenue. And then Micro Farm Program, which is a similar to the Whole Farm Revenue Program for smaller operations that have up to $350,000 in revenue. And then in addition, they have a somewhat new program that has been given to those that are transitioning to organic. So for those of you that are transitioning, this transition to organic grower assistance program is something that you definitely want to check out. And I'll be sure to include links to all these programs for each of our winter webinars, so you can scope that out if need be. And then, of course, as a small nonprofit, your membership means the world to us. So if you're not already a member and would like to join, please consider doing so. Of course, if you are a business and would like to be a sponsor, we welcome any questions, and we welcome you to either connect with myself or our Executive Director, Roz, and our information is listed here. So that is all I have for you today, and I'll go ahead and I'll allow Elizabeth Whitlow with Regenerative Organic Alliance to share her presentation on the Regenerative Organic Certification, which I'm so thrilled to hear about. So thank you, Elizabeth, for being here today. We're so excited to hear about ROC.
Thank you, Olga. Hi, everybody. Good morning from Northern California. Just while you were speaking, Olga, we had this huge gust of wind and I lost reception for a minute. So I've got my phone ready on backup in case I have to jump to Wi-Fi. But as you all may have noticed in the news, we're experiencing some very crazy weather. I hope that my internet will stay with me through this whole next hour with you. And I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about what we're doing at the Regenerative Organic Alliance. And so what I want to do today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Regenerative Organic Alliance and kind of how we're defining this term regenerative organic and why we need it and who's behind our program, how we built this certification standard, because as it comes down to at the end of the day, what we're doing here at the Alliance, we have launched a new certification program that can help really showcase growers who are implementing these practices and doing this work, and showcase it in a way that consumers can learn about it and learn to support it. And Olga, what you were talking about with the work you're doing and going to all these universities and educating youth, it's really critical at this time. As we all know, the average age probably of an American farmer is around 60 years old. And we need that next generation to get excited about the possibilities of agriculture for a future. And this is something I've been doing, 20 something years now in my career. I am from Georgia, And I got my start in agriculture in the beautiful state of Arkansas up in the Ozarks, where I started learning about the power of agriculture, specifically through food, to really transform the land and to help a community. And so I've been working at it ever since I've been in California, about 22 years, where I started my work for an organic certifier. And one of my favorite jobs I've ever had was as an organic inspector, spending a lot of time visiting with farmers, just ensuring that they were meeting the organic standards and helping them understand what the organic standards were. Was one of the most gratifying parts of my job, was just the days I spent traveling around visiting farms and sitting around the kitchen table looking at their records and visiting their fields and hearing about their challenges and all the innovation that comes from organic farmers. And it's just inspired me for my whole career. So I was very lucky when I came upon this job with the Regenerative Organic Alliance. I've been here. I was the first person hired, and that was in 2018, the end of 2018. So I'll be coming into my 5th year in this position as the Executive Director of the Regenerative Organic Alliance. So I'm going to get into some more details of who's behind it and what we did to create this program. But I thought first, like, let's look at this idea, this concept of regenerative. It's become quite a buzzword. When I first started 4+ years ago, nobody was really saying regenerative. In fact, a lot of people had a hard time with it. There's a lot of syllables, it's a mouthful, and I didn't know that it would become such a buzzword. And now you see it everywhere. In fact, last year, I think there were 5 new regenerative certifications that popped up. And so one way that we really differentiate ourselves here at the ROA is regenerative is linked to organic. And so I'll get into more details of that here in a little bit, but just looking here at this slide and thinking about regenerative organic agriculture as a collection of practices that focus on regenerating soil health and the full farm ecosystem, farming as nature intended. And so in practice, regenerative organic agriculture can look like cover cropping, crop rotation, minimal till, adding compost, and zero use of persistent chemicals and fertilizers. But then we layer into that all of these other aspects that we think define a more holistic approach to this concept of regenerative. And really, when you get down to it, to be truly regenerative, the system has to consider all the players, all the living beings in that farm system. So from the soil microbiome to the animals that work, the workers themselves who work on the farm. And so looking at farmers as the stewards of our land, and with the power of regenerative organic agriculture, we want to completely change the direction of our future practices for agriculture. And I doubt this is really anything that you all need to hear of why do we need regenerative organic now, because you are part of this great organization. And so clearly already interested in and aligned with the principles of organic. But you look at the fact that industrial agriculture and factory farming of animals are the top contributors to climate change and to global carbon emissions, to methane. And we need to just really shift our focus and make these very clear and calculated changes to our food and agricultural systems so that we quit losing topsoil at these unprecedented rates, 30 soccer fields per minute. IPCC, the Intergovernmental Climate Change Association of Scientists, predict that we've only got 60 or 70 harvests left because of the rate at which we are depleting our topsoil. I imagine in Iowa, that comes very close to home. You all have some of the most beautiful soil in the world. And so holding on to that soil and finding ways to farm to retain your soil is something that is really critical to your natural capital. Looking at toxic pesticides as well, and thinking about all the runoff that is coming from conventional industrial style farms and what that's doing to our waterways, to our air, and to our own bodies is also a really important aspect of why we need regenerative organic. And so we'll get more into some of these details here as I move into describing what our program is. But first, I want to just tell you who are the founders of the ROA. And this was created by very visionary leaders in the organic sector who continue to question the assumptions of business as usual. And that is the Patagonia company. You may know for their apparel. Actually, I'm wearing one of their hemp jackets right now. Patagonia also has a little known food division because the founder of Patagonia thought that food would have so much power to make changes, to have the same impact that the apparel division was having. And so, gosh, almost 10 years ago, they launched Patagonia Provisions. And we're going to see a lot of growth happening with that division of Patagonia in the coming year under a new leadership with Paul Lightfoot. We also have, as a founder, Dr. Bronner's, very beloved maker of natural soaps, and also starting to make some other products because of their work in the Regenerative Organic program. They are creating new products that I'll tell you about a little bit later. And these are all kind of an outcome of working with farmers in their supply chain who are diversifying their the crops that they're growing in agroforestry settings. So the palm forests also are home to cacao. And so Dr. Bronner's has launched a new line of chocolate, super delicious. Hopefully you'll get those. They'll be coming to some natural food stores near you soon. We've also got the Rodeo Institute as our core founder, those three. Rodeo Institute has long been known for bringing organic here to America, and over 75 years of research trials that are showing very directly what happens when you do side-by-side comparison of conventional with organic, and now conventional, plain organic, and regenerative organic trials are showing what happens when you implement these methods. And so hopefully we'll hear from Drew Erickson with the work that they're doing, because you all are so lucky you've got a research center right there in your state. There are now 6, I think, or maybe 7 Rodeo research centers popping up, mostly in the US, but we've got some in other parts of the world. I've been to one of their research farms in Parma, Italy, in fact, last year. And I believe there's another one coming in South America and perhaps in India. So Rodeo is really growing their influence and helping to educate farmers and consumers on the benefits of growing with regenerative organic methods, and doing also a lot of research on showing the increased nutrient density in foods that are grown in healthy soil. And it was J.I. Rodale who wrote this when he kind of came up with the inspiration for the Rodale Institute, and it was healthy soil equals healthy plants equals healthy people. It's really simple. And so if we look at ways to make the soil more healthy, then it will result in healthier plants and therefore healthier people. So without further ado, I will introduce the Regenerative Organic Certified. That's the program. This is the seal down here in the corner that you're going to start to see on a lot more products as we get more and more farmers certified under our program. And it's an umbrella certification. So it covers its environmental protection and land management. It covers the animal welfare and fair trade or social fairness for the farmers and farm workers. And it truly represents the highest standard for organic agriculture in the world. When consumers start purchasing regenerative organic certified products, this allows those individuals to connect with a full suite of important values that they bring to the supermarket with them. And they can know at a glance that their purchase is making a positive impact at every level: environmental, ethical, and social. Our program, we start with organic as a baseline. And I always like to emphasize this because first of all, I came from organic. So I worked in organic for 20 years, and I understand very well how hard-earned that designation is and how wonderful it is to see it implemented. I also have seen organic farms that don't meet my full ideal for what organic would be, but it meets the law. And so this is where the Regenerative Organic Certified program steps in and adds in these additional layers that are listed here on this slide. I still would say we always will support organic. It prohibits toxic chemicals. It prohibits GMOs. And there are certain parts of the federal law that really speak to many of the principles in our standard, but it's difficult for organic certifiers to always uphold the highest interpretation of that. So for our program, we start first with organic, and we recognize 14 different certifications around the world. So we require as the baseline organic, USDA organic, or its international equivalent. And then we also recognize programs like biodynamic. Naturland is one in Europe that's very commonly seen. And then we have in the animal welfare pillar, we accept and recognize a number of other types of animal welfare certifications. This includes certified humane, animal welfare approved, global animal partnership. And so if a farmer comes to us, they have those, then that checks off certain boxes in our criteria. And that way we can eliminate duplication so that busy farmers don't have to endure repetitive or redundancies at the audit. For the social fairness, we recognize 7 or 8 different social fairness certifications. And this is a topic that's a little more complicated when we approach it from the perspective in North America or the global North. Most of the fair trade certifications really are dominant in the global South, where there have been very egregious practices of human trafficking and child labor and forced labor. There's just all manner of issues that have been happening coming in from the global South, which you are probably familiar with if you buy coffee, bananas, chocolate, sugar, citrus, some of those commonly imported products that come to us from the global South. So we recognize all of these different standards, and they meet a lot of our criteria, but we do go a bit further. And so I mentioned earlier that we're the highest standard for organic agriculture in the world. And after the last few years of working on this, I am very proud to say that you can't get much higher. It is the North Star. So I want to just go into this kind of show the difference between some of these common claims right now. With the USDA organic, as we saw in the first slide, prohibits synthetic chemicals, it prohibits GMOs, also prohibits antibiotics in livestock production, but there is little enforcement of the best soil health practices. There's also very limited rules for animal welfare. In fact, there's some real major problems with the USDA organic on livestock, and they're working to address it, but the pace at which change happens with a federal law is very slow. And so it's been 10 years that they've been trying to implement the recommendations from the Animal Welfare Task Force many years ago, and they still haven't been able to implement it. So organic livestock producers don't have to allow access for the poultry to the outdoors in a way that most consumers think is happening. So that's a real issue for us and why we have our animal welfare criteria. The federal rule for organic is never going to address anything around labor for farm worker fairness and for farmer fairness. And so that is a really big topic. It's addressed by OSHA and labor law and other federal laws, but it is never going to be addressed in the organic group. Regenerative here in the middle is this claim. As I mentioned, there's 5 or 6 new regenerative certifications that have popped up. And of course, everybody's welcome. This is a big tent. We want everybody to get on the journey to incorporating more regenerative practices. But we have concerns around the claims suddenly being overused and abused by big corporate entities who are seeing the trends. They see what's going on in the market. They see that consumers are looking for something more meaningful and more hopeful to support. And so we really want to prevent the term regenerative from getting watered down. And that's, I think, one of the things we need to consider with these new regenerative certifications. Most of them are focused really specifically on carbon. A lot going on in carbon in sequestration or carbon trading. There's also a lot of smoke and mirrors in there, and a lot of concerns that we have about focusing exclusively on the carbon capture, because really at the end of the day, it's about healthy soil and how it improves profitability, plant health, and all kinds of other aspects of for that farmer. Many of the regenerative practices, we are aligned on those core practices for soil health, which I will outline on the next slide. It doesn't prohibit pesticides. Regenerative programs do not prohibit GMOs, and they do not include social fairness, none that I'm aware of. So then you arrive here on this Regenerative Organic Certified, and we've got all the requirements of the USDA plus these other components, which I will get into here on the next slide. So here, these soil health, animal welfare, social fairness. And I won't get in too deep on these unless we have time and there are questions. It looks like my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully you can hear me.
You cut out. You cut out for a split second, Elizabeth.
Okay.
But we can hear you now, so we're good.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Olga. Yeah, just let me know if anything comes up. So, soil health. We're looking to build the soil organic matter, and really the core of that is to minimize the soil disturbance. So much innovation is happening around that, and really led by Rodeo with the introduction from Jeff Moyer, who's a very active member of our board and has been since inception. He introduced the roller crimper to the world. I don't even know what year that was. Maybe Drew can elaborate on that, but it's been some time. I remember seeing it at a farm conference probably 15 years ago, but the roller crimper is a really fascinating tool that can help farmers in so many ways to grow a cover crop and then keep that cover crop on the ground by crimping it over and direct seeding in that. And then the cover crop forms basically a mat, which prevents weeds, retains moisture, and eventually will add more to the organic matter in that soil. And that's just one example of some of the innovation that we've been seeing. Crop rotation. This is another really exciting field. So much happening around that, like what kind of crops you can use to rotate with certain crops, and there's just a lot of learnings I've seen around using different clovers and some kinds of alfalfa and mustards. They use a lot out here for nematodes. So there's something for everyone there, I'd say, in the crop rotation sector. We don't allow hydroponics in our program, and that was another big departure in the organic rule that happened in around 2017 when the National Organic Standard Board voted 8-7. So it was a really, it was a pretty bitter moment, I'd say, for the industry. And there were a lot of people who were really upset about this because they felt like organic needed to begin in the soil. And if you're going to allow a soilless system, then it's going to just lead to all kinds of issues with what we've seen happening, and that is we are importing a lot of organic berries and tomatoes and other types of crops grown in places like Baja, in Mexico, in South America, using soilless systems or hydroponic systems. They're importing all their fertility and growing it in like a sterile medium and just kind of pumping the plants full of these nutrients so they produce these profitable crops. And they also have undercut farmers who are doing the hard work of growing the crop in the soil. So the soilless system is a really big differentiator for us. We also have some strict rules around what type of inputs you can use. The organic program is good, but there are certain approved materials that are on the Xerces list that are not allowed in the Regenerative Organic Certified program. And so some of those can be very toxic to all the insects in the ecosystem and not just the targeted insect, for example. So we're very specific on which materials are allowed. We also don't allow quick acting soluble fertilizers. So that's another differentiator. We want to see on-farm fertility being built by the farmers because of their soil health practices, because of using compost and cover crops and so forth. We also have a number of criteria that really are intended to promote the preservation of biodiversity and the conservation of land. You cannot take a pristine ecosystem like in the Amazon. You cannot cut down the Amazon jungle and plant organic soybeans for our program. You can do that for organic, and it's perfectly legitimate and legal. And so we have certain provisions in our program that go above and beyond that for organic. We also like to see livestock integration, but it is not required. If there are livestock integrated into the farm, then trying to promote a rotational grazing and practices that have been proven to really improve the soil health. For the animal welfare pillar, we basically recognize the 5 principles of freedom for animals: freedom from discomfort, from fear and distress, freedom from hunger, from pain, injury, and the freedom to express normal behavior. And that is one of the core principles, in my opinion, because it's really allowing ruminants to be out on pasture where they are intended to live their lives. And so allowing the ruminants and to be on pasture, and really actually requiring that they're on pasture whenever possible in that particular climate, is an important tenet of our program. We also limit transport, and in this country, certainly we see this a lot in California, is that livestock producers have very few options for having the animals processed. And so they have to drive long distance, which is incredibly stressful on the animals. And so we have a limited transport that presents other challenges for farmers, because then how are they going to have the animals processed? So looking at ways that we can support some of the movement that is going on and some of the changes happening. I'm just familiar with a very new project down in Southern California of a mobile slaughtering unit for an entire region where it can go to farm and process the animals on farm. So those animals really only have one bad day, as one of my former board members, Will Harris, liked to say. We don't allow any confined animal feedlot operations. If there is an animal or an operation that qualifies as that by the number of animal units per acre, then we just make sure that we will allow it with the provision that those operations need to show how they are fully utilizing their pasture, and that the animals are out on pasture as much as possible. The social fairness pillar on the right, this one gets into some of the details around labor rules. And this is about good working conditions and living wages, which are shockingly hard for farm workers to earn a living wage. And this is not unique to the US, it's across the world. There are many different efforts to try and address this, but it's difficult because I think we have just gotten very accustomed to this concept of cheap food, and it has to come with cheap labor. And so we have to really try and turn that around and help increase the possibilities for farm workers to earn a wage that they can actually live on in a community, so they don't have to depend on the community for other resources and other support. We also want to see capacity building so that there's some way of educating the farm workers and empowering them. And especially this is important when it comes into gender equality and looking at women and men in the agricultural sector, in the farm working population in particular. There are many violations of sexual harassment. They'd say 70 to 80% of female farm workers experience sexual harassment. So we've got a lot of provisions looking at that, and preventing child labor is another really important tenet of our social fairness program. This top one here, the fair payments for farmers, is something that is very unique to our program, and it is the buyer's criteria. And this is where any brand that wants to buy regenerative organic certified crops, they have to be willing to be transparent and show how they're paying a premium to those farmers, how they're providing long-term contracts whenever possible so they can ensure stability for the farmers, and the farmers can have some assurance that they've got a buyer who's going to pay them a premium and not be at the whims of the marketplace. So those are some of the basic tenets of our 3 pillars. And I don't want to get too far down the road talking about this, so I'm happy to answer questions, and I would point you to our website, which is www.regenorganic.org, and you can read our framework if you care to get deeper into the more detailed aspects of all of those criteria. One other unique aspect of our program is that we have these 3 levels. So the idea is that as a grower comes in and they enter in at bronze, and then they incorporate more and more regenerative practices, and that increase silver, and eventually arriving at gold. And the gold standard for ROC is very hard to attain. So far, out of well over 100 certified clients, I think we have 3 that have attained gold, and they threw everything they could at it, because some folks just really want to go for gold. I'd say bronze is an amazing achievement, and anybody would be very proud to be able to put this logo on pack or on their product for sale. So here, this is way too much text probably to read, but I just wanted to give you an example of that, the framework that I just mentioned on our website. You can pull up the roster, are some of the examples of how we are trying to bring these principles to life. And there's different ways that we have of working with our growers to show how they're implementing this. We have really well-trained auditors who are doing this program for us. And so the idea is, of course, that the auditor goes out and they're going to go through the regenerative organic system plan at each operation, and they're going to look at how this farmer is working to minimize the soil disturbance. If they do use a lot of tillage, then there needs to be a tillage action plan, so they can show from year to year how they're trying to address the tillage and minimize their tillage. We also do require a soil lab test. So this is unique to our program. We require the soil test in the first year and then every 3 years after that. And the idea is, of course, we're going to establish a baseline, and we're going to prove the benefits of these practices over time. And we're already seeing it. We've seen some really astonishing results from some of the farmers who have been collecting these soil samples and sharing their research and data with us. And you also have near you is the scientists, and maybe some of you all are working with the Ecdysis Foundation on their 1,000 Farms project, where they're doing a really comprehensive analysis of many of these things. They're looking at the soil lab tests. They're also looking at native flora and fauna on the farm with trained scientists and other key performance indicators, and analyzing and assessing how the regenerative practices are affecting all of this data. One thing we also require that I love is the in-field soil testing results, and anyone can do that. We have 2 series of videos on our website on the resources page for conducting really simple in-field soil tests. We had a great team of soil scientists led by Rodale Yi Chao, who I believe did one of the webinars for your organization last year. So the soil scientists all came together, and they looked at, like, what is the way that we can help growers assess this without having to send it out to lab? Like, how do they look at aggregate stability? How do they assess certain aspects of, just with simple tools of a shovel and a bucket and maybe your nose and your hands? And I'd say it's probably one of the most rewarding parts I've heard from inspectors and farmers of their annual inspections, is crawling on the ground and sniffing the soil and looking at different life forms in the soil. So yeah, have a look at that if you're interested. I better move a little faster. It's 10:40 now. So I'm just going to quickly go through steps to get certified. You'll go on to our website. You would submit the online application and provide your organic certificate and any other certificates that you hold. If you have livestock, then you would present one of the animal welfare certifications, and then the social fairness, because we realize there's not a lot of options for growers in the global north. We are offering a social fairness audit for low and medium risk operations. And so the definitions for those are found in our framework, but basically it's looking at certain ways of hiring if you're using a lot of H-2A workers, or you use a contracted labor service provider, or you have more than 25 workers on the farm all year. Those types of operations are more complex and they require a more seasoned social auditor. We have provided training to our NOP certifiers, to their auditors, to do a social audit for low and medium risk. It's still a big learning curve for all of us on this. And so I think we've all learned a lot, and we'll continue to learn and grow our program. This year, I really am hopeful by spring that we're going to have a manual for farmers on best practices for labor practices to meet the Regenerative Organic Certified Social Fairness Standard. So if you're interested in that, keep your eyes out on our website. I'm sure we'll be announcing it, and I hope by March or April we'll have that ready. You'll fill out an organic system plan for the regenerative program. And once you get that filled out, we will pair you up with a certifying body who works in your region. In Iowa, we have several certifiers. We just approved Where Food Comes From. We have ProCert from Canada, who also dips down into the Midwest. Quality certification services based in Florida, but they're all over the US. Same with California Certified Organic Farmers and Pennsylvania Certified Organic Farmers. Those are all domestic certifiers who are approved to offer the Regenerative Organic Certified audit. Once you get paired with your certifier, then they'll assign it to a trained auditor, hopefully in your region. And then you'll have your audit and they'll review it. They'll send us a review decision and we issue you that final certificate. And then we really do everything we can to help promote your work and connect you with buyers. And I am hearing every day, we hear from buyers like looking for certain types of regenerative organic certified crops. And I'll share a slide with you of some of the brands we're working with now and our growth charts. You can see the number of brands we have got licensed to make regenerative organic certified products. We've done a lot with just a handful of certifiers. We started with 3, and we are now up to actually 12 certifiers and probably 100 trained auditors. We're working in 94 different countries where we can offer services. Everybody wants to know cost. We would love in the future to fully develop a cost share program that we piloted 2 years ago. It's pretty much out of funds now, but we'll continue to fundraise for this in the future once we really build up our organizational capacity to handle the demand that we're experiencing. For now, the application fee for most growers is going to be $350. The $1,000 application fee is for a grower group. So that's like a group of 5,000 farmers in Sierra Leone or in somewhere in the global South. And the certifier costs, those are the certifiers determine those, and it really depends on your location, which pillars you're going to be applying for, the size of your farm, the complexity of your farm. And then we have an annual fee, which we just lowered. It was at 0.1% of your gross farm sales for regenerative organic, but we have since decided to try and simplify it and lower the fee as much as we can. So it's $250 a year for most farms. $250 or $500 if you're over $1 million in revenue. And here's where we are today. I'm really proud to show that we are now at 585,000 acres have been certified. We have 106 farms certified. One farm may represent a grower group that is 3, 4, 5,000 farmers. So therefore, we cover over 33,000 smallholder farms and 230 different types of crops and 55, it's probably, since this chart was made a couple weeks ago, we're probably at 60 now. The brands are coming in all the time. Here's an example of some of the brands we work with. And these may be familiar to you. You may have seen them at most people are very familiar with Nature's Path, Patagonia, Grain Place Foods, just south of you, Lotus Foods, Guayaquil. So Whole Foods Market has been a really big supporter. And in fact, they require any brand who makes the claim regenerative has to be certified to Regenerative Organic Program or the Savory Institute. Started moving kind of quickly there at the end, but I wanted to do that so I could make a minute for Drew and also to have time for your questions. So thanks for listening in. I'm going to end my slideshow and turn it back to you, Olga.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Yes, there are a few questions that have come in. Drew, do you have, would you like to share some insights?
Yeah, sure. Elizabeth did a really great job of just kind of covering regenerative organic. I should say we are not certified regenerative organic here in Iowa, but we're looking at a lot of those things, and as is all of our Rodale sites. So we are doing experiments with different animal manures and different rates of animal manures. We're composting animal manures and incorporating them into our fields to improve soil health. We're doing studies on grazing livestock and how to best integrate livestock. We are using cover crops. We're, again, moving towards reduced tillage. We haven't eliminated tillage in our organic system altogether. I think that's a lofty goal, but something that we're curious about. So we do use a roller crimper quite a bit to roll down rye, and we'll be looking at some other cover crops as we go forward. And then we're also growing a diverse food grade cropping system. So we're looking at millet, sorghum, sunflower, wheat, barley, peas, and as Elizabeth and I discussed when she came out and visited us, you know, these aren't new ideas. All of these are really old ideas. This is all the way farming used to be done. So in addition to that, we are also doing some of the conservation practices. I put up a lot of bird, bat, and owl boxes. We have prairie strips. We have pollinator habitat planted. And I think another goal of ours would be to establish a windrow. Organic growers have to have a buffer. So we're thinking that might be a good place to plant some trees. So we are available to visit. We'll have a field day this summer. I think it's scheduled for mid-August. We will be doing monthly tours. And if you can't make it to any of those things, please reach out and we'll try to accommodate. We want people to see what we're doing. So,
Drew, will you post your contact information in the chat box for folks to have handy in case if they want to connect? And then also maybe the website for the Midwest Organic Center. Thank you so much for sharing that information, Drew. And thank you so much for sharing your presentation, Elizabeth. There are some questions that have come in, so I'd like to ask those. Kara asked, how does the Real Organic Project certification interface with ROC? Is it duplicative?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the Real Organic Project is, I think we're very much aligned in many of our principles. And I actually was just on another panel with them that Al Gore had us speak at his Climate Underground conference. So I think their program is really geared for smaller farmers, perhaps who have more direct sales. And I don't know the extent that they have gone to develop the kind of standard that in the way that we have, where we're working only with NOP accredited certifiers, where we work with really highly trained auditors who have to go through, a lot. It's almost the same as the farmers. They have to really show they've got a lot of experience in the different pillars that they're approved to audit to. They take a pretty lengthy training and test in order to become a Regenerative Organic Certified auditor. And our process is just, I would say, probably a good bit more robust and lengthy. And so I haven't been to a Real Organic Project audit, but I have lots of friends who in Northern California who have been talking with them, and Paul Mueller is one of their founding members, is nearby. And so I think theirs doesn't have quite the same rigor that ours has. But I believe Jeff was on the founding advisory council for the Real Organic Project. And so, and Bronner's has supported them. So yeah, it would be nice to work with them more, but I think we're all really busy and maybe just different audience in a way. Like because we were founded by brands who were trying to find a more meaningful way to get this kind of a really credible certification out there, and and use that seal on pack for consumers. These are brands who don't have direct contact with their consumers. And so farmers who have direct contact with their consumers can, if you're buying at the farmer's market or in a CSA, you get to see the farm, you get to know the farmer. Many consumers are far removed from that. And so they need a seal they can really trust and that has a lot of rigor behind it.
Thank you for your answer, Elizabeth.
Yep.
Another question from Thomas. He said, prior to going through the certification process, is there a good way to determine if I would be close to being able to be certified? If the hurdle is not too high, then it might be worth certifying.
Yeah. What kind of crops do you grow? Do you want to unmute whoever that?
Thomas, do you want to unmute yourself so you can share?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, Thomas.
Hi. Well, just the corn, beans, hay, oats kind of a thing. And then I have cattle on pasture.
Uh-huh. And do you sell direct or do you sell to that go into packaged?
I sell like a commodity to other users. Corn goes off to organic, the Grange Co-op in Washington State, and oats could go various other places. So, and beans you typically go to feed supplier in Wisconsin.
Yeah, we're hearing from more livestock operations, but honestly, we haven't had a lot of growth domestically with the livestock. And I think one of the barriers is getting the feed. We do, as Regenerative Organic Certified, we do allow livestock operations to, at the bronze level, they can use organic feed. And then at silver level, it has to be 50% organic and 50% regenerative organic. I think this is especially challenging for poultry, probably not as much for the dairies. And we do have quite a few dairies up in Pennsylvania and one on the West Coast. So yeah, I think, for oats, seems to be a lot of interest and a lot of promise in oats. So I'd be really curious if people in your organization in Iowa are growing oats for something other than livestock feed. Do you know that, Olga?
And I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's a lot of interest in oat milk and oat used for plant-based cheeses and things like that. And so that's a really interesting area of potential growth. But Thomas, as far as your question, I think if you went and just looked at the criteria that we have and just see how you meet up with each of those would be a pretty straightforward way of seeing if you would be eligible. And we'd be happy to talk to you before you spent the money up on an application. If you didn't think you were eligible, you could meet with our staff and they'd be happy to answer your questions or see if you needed some help. And actually, Rodeo has a whole team of consultants who are helping farmers all over the country with this. And Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, it started with just a couple people on that team and it's now 12 people, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's our fastest growing sector of our nonprofit.
Yeah, there's a lot of really awesome folks around the country. I work with your West Coast guy, Nathaniel, all the time. And I'll have a grower call me and be like, I want to do this, but I grow carrots. We don't know how we can do this. And so then I just link them up to Nathaniel and he'll go out and do a farm visit and talk to them about what they're growing, how they're growing it, and talk about regenerative methods they could incorporate. So
yeah, I think we actually have two consultants on the call, Dean and Dave Campbell. Yeah.
Can you please show yourselves? I haven't even met them. Dean and Dave.
Are you guys officially consultants yet?
Haven't got the word yet.
Hi, Dave. I can't even keep up. It changes so fast. There's new people coming on all the time. It's great.
Thank you for the answer, Elizabeth. Another question from Patty. I would like to hear some clarification on the statement that brands need to show transparency of premiums paid to farmers and not to let these prices be at the whim of the marketplace. All these brands sell within a market-based food and agriculture system. How does ROC define fair payments to farmers, and how does ROC certification benefit farmers who direct market to consumers? Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Patty. Great question. I'll show you the buyer's criteria. I've got it queued up here on my other screen. And I would just suggest you could go look at this. It starts at page 38 of our framework. And so you can see the language in here where this came from a lot of experts who were working in social fairness and in trying to make these changes, these systemic changes throughout our food system. And totally agree with you. It's we have the system that we really rely on and think we deserve or need to have cheap food. And so it's difficult. We can't, we've got to start somewhere though. So what we do is we have all these principles, and when a brand comes to get licensed with us, then they have to disclose this to us, and they talk about the pricing. For example, the Fair Trade International program it's a resource, and I think it's probably 50+ pages, but it shows an index of what crops, what a fair price is or premium is for crops around the world in different sectors. So you can find out cacao in Ghana versus cacao from Ecuador, and you can see what the fair price is considered there. And so we're looking for fair pricing and premiums, and the premiums are, you know, I'm hearing people talk about at least 10%, and you can see here we have this that clause here at the end of that. When real costs are not known, local market prices or established fair trade minimum prices can be used if these can be determined to cover the cost of production. If not, then 10% should be added. So yeah, there's some of these principles I mentioned in the buyer's criteria that you can find on our website in our framework.
Okay, perfect. And then the next question is with livestock. Does your certification program relieve no, that's not it. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the questions. Do you require livestock processing facilities that process for your certified livestock farmers to be certified in some way?
Well, there's certain animal welfare slaughter standards that we recognize that they have those with the programs, the certifications, the animal welfare, certified humane, and global animal partnership. They all require certification all the way through. So it's pretty much covered when the grower comes to us with those certifications. If they don't have it, we recognize there's a real challenge with the infrastructure and the lack of capacity for that. So we'll recognize other welfare certifications for those slaughter facilities, but we don't require they're certified for ROC.
Okay.
We're a farm-based certification.
Is there a premium for organic corn, soybeans, and small grains beyond the organic price?
Yeah, I was just in Saskatoon, Canada in November at the Organic Connections conference, and I was really so surprised and happy to hear from farmers there who are selling to Farmers Direct Organic. They're a co-op up there who is paying premiums, and farmers were telling me that this is the first year that they've sold all their crop. They had premium, they had money in the bank, and their kids were looking at farming as a viable future. And so that's what we want to see. Absolutely what we want to see. And I see a comment from Francis. Dick, thank you so much for your service and all your work in this sector. I know you've been at this a long time and you understand very well all the issues. So you made a comment about the Real Organic Project requires USDA certification and certifies all sizes of farms, and you have over 1,000 farms certified. And that's remarkable. I'm not sure how you all did that in the time of COVID. We had travel restrictions, so we couldn't even get out during 2020. We didn't have auditors going out to visit farms. We had to wait a bit and then finally started getting out last year. But again, I think it's about the nature of our certification versus ROP, that we base it on organic like you, but we do the work with accredited certifiers. And so they're the ones who are doing it. We don't do the actual auditing. We don't make that certification decision. And so we do that so we can really observe the best practices from ISO standard 1765. And so that's, you know, part of the intention behind the whole thing is that we really have these rigorous international standards that we uphold.
Very cool. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for all of this information and for sharing your insights about the regenerative organic certification today. I hope this was very insightful to everyone. I will go ahead and post this on our YouTube channel, send the link to everyone so that you can check back in if you need to revisit this recording, as well as send out a quick survey. If you guys don't mind taking 5 minutes of your time to share your responses via the survey, that would be greatly appreciated. It's always helpful to know how to best serve you in the future and for grant reporting purposes too. So Elizabeth, we appreciate your time today. Thank you again for being here, and thank you for this wonderful webinar with IOA.
Yeah. Thank you, Olga. I appreciate the invite. I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Take
Have
care.
a good day, everyone.
Bye.